All right. Today we're going to be in Exodus chapter 30. There are 38 verses in this chapter, and we're going to see a few different things. We're going to see the creation of just a few different things. The altar of incense, instructions for the atonement money. We're going to see the bronze basin, the anointing oil, and the sacred incense. So let's hop right into it on the Christian Boy podcast. And right before we do, don't forget to share, subscribe, like, rate the podcast, comment something below. Let me know how you're liking this episode. And yeah, let's get right into it on this new year, first week of the year. Let's get into it. Our memory verse for the week comes from Proverbs chapter 10, verse 13. It says, "Wisdom is found on the lips of the discerning, but the rod is for the back of one who lacks sense." Chapter 30. You are to make an altar for the burnt. Chapter 30. You are to make an altar for the burning of incense. Make it of acacia wood. It must be square, 18 inches long and 18 inches wide. It must be 36 inches high. Its horns must be of one piece. Overlay its top, all around its sides, and its horns with pure gold. Make a gold molding all around it. Make 2 gold rings for it under the molding on 2 of its sides. Put these on opposite sides of it to be holders for the poles to carry it with. Make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. You are to place the altar in front of the veil by the ark of the testimony, in front of the mercy seat, that is, over the testimony, where I will meet with you. Aaron must burn fragrant incense on it. He must burn it every morning when he tends the lamps. When Aaron sets up the lamps at twilight, he must burn incense. There is to be an incense offering before the Lord throughout your generations. You must not offer unauthorized incense on it, or a burnt or grain offering. You are not to pour a drink offering on it. Once a year, Aaron is to perform the purification rite on the horns of the altar. Throughout your generations, he is to perform the purification rite for it once a year with the blood of the sin offering for atonement. The altar is especially holy to the Lord. The Lord spoke to Moses, "When you take a census of the Israelites to register them, each of the men must pay a ransom for himself to the Lord as they are registered. Then no plague will come on them as they are registered. Everyone who is registered must pay half a shekel, according to the sanctuary shekel, 20 gerahs to the shekel. This half shekel is a contribution to the Lord. Each man who is registered 20 years old or more must give this contribution to the Lord. The wealthy may not give more, and the poor may not give less than half a shekel. When giving the contribution to the Lord to atone for your lives, take the atonement money from the Israelites and use it for the service of the tent of meeting. It will serve as a reminder for the Israelites before the Lord to atone for your lives." The Lord spoke to Moses, "Make a bronze basin for washing and a bronze stand for it. Set it between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Aaron and his sons must wash their hands and feet from the basin. Whenever they enter the tent of meeting or approach the altar to minister by burning up an offering to the Lord, they must wash with water so that they will not die. They must wash their hands and feet so that they will not die. This is to be a permanent statute for them, for Aaron and his descendants throughout their generations." The Lord spoke to Moses, "Take for yourself the finest spices, 12.5 pounds of liquid myrrh, half as much, 6.25 pounds of fragrant cinnamon, 6.25 pounds of fragrant cane, 12.5 pounds of cassia by the sanctuary shekel, and 1 gallon of olive oil. Prepare from these a holy anointing oil, a scented blend. The work of a perfumer will be holy anointing oil. With it you are to anoint the tent of meeting and the ark of the testimony, the table with all its utensils, and the lampstand with its utensils, the altar of incense and the altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, and the basin with its stand. Consecrate them and they will be especially holy. Whatever touches them will be consecrated. Anoint Aaron and his sons and consecrate them to serve me as priests. Tell the Israelites, this will be my holy anointing oil throughout your generations. It must be not be used for ordinary anointing on a person's body, and you must not make anything like it using its formula. It is holy and must be holy to you. Anyone who blends something like it or puts some of it in an unauthorized person must be cut off from his people. The Lord said to Moses, take fragrant spices, stash, ancha, and galbanum. The spices and pure frankincense are to be in equal measures. Prepare expertly blended incense from these. It is to be seasoned with salt, pure and holy. Grind some of it into a fine powder and put some in front of the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will meet with you. It must be especially holy to you. As for the incense you are making, you must not make any for yourselves using its formula. It is to be regarded by you as sacred to the Lord. Anyone who makes it something like it to smell its fragrance must be cut off from his people. All right, let's review this chapter. First, we see the altar of incense. It says, you are to make an altar for burning of incense. Make it of acacia wood. So that's the first thing we see. And now we see this thing of burning incense. We see people nowadays on TikTok and different places, even on YouTube, that talk about spiritualism and burning incense. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between what was happening here in Exodus and what those people are doing now? Well, if we look at it, God says this is supposed to be placed in front of the mercy seat, and it must burn a fragrant incense. He's supposed to burn it. Aaron is supposed to burn it every morning when he tends to the lamp. And this incense is supposed to be an offering to the Lord. And then we also see in verse 9, it says, you must not offer an unauthorized incense or a burnt or grain offering. You are not to pour a drink offering on it. So this incense was firstly burned in the temple and not in anybody's house. Secondly, it wasn't to connect it to any spiritualist things or to connect to your ancestors or to get you in a spiritual state. This incense was burned as an offering unto the Lord, a fragrance in God's temple. Thirdly, we see that it's supposed to be a ritual for the people of Israel in the temple to be performed throughout their generations. You can see that in verse 8. So that's the difference. When somebody says, well, they used to burn incense in Exodus chapter 30, and we're just doing the same thing that they're doing. They're not doing the same thing that you're doing. Some people are burning incense. They're saying they want to connect to spiritual beings and different things like that. They're burning incense as an offering unto the Lord at the Lord's command. That's the other thing that sets these two groups apart. They're doing it. The Israelites in Exodus are doing it because God commanded them to do it. People nowadays are just doing it because they want to connect to the spiritual realm, which is not highly recommended. Next, we see atonement money. We see the price of atonement is half a shekel. Both the rich and the poor have to give the same amount. Nobody gets a different amount to give. Then we see the bronze basin that is created. And again, I said we're going to have an episode on that. That's the next episode. We're going to go through each of the pieces of the temple and talk about them. But we see the bronze basin created. And they must wash their hands and feet so they will not die. This is a permanent statute. So they have to purify their hands. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. But they have to purify their hands. Then we see the anointing oil. And the main thing I want to talk about on the anointing oil is anyone who blends something like it or puts it on an unauthorized person must be cut off from his people. This oil is very fragrant. We have anointing oil at our church. It's not anything special. It's just a symbol of God's presence for us, and we keep little vials of it. But one thing that I like about this verse is this is not a perfume for the people to wear or a oil that you can use to heal bandages or wounds. This is literally a holy oil set apart for God, for his temple use only, not just for you to just, I'm going to use this as a perfume today. Anointing oil 318, it's not a perfume for people to use. And then the last thing we see is a sacred incense. And Again, he says, anyone who makes something like this fragrance will be cut off from his people. Again, these are supposed to be holy items. This incense that God tells them to create is supposed to be used only in the temple, only in God's presence, not for them to use anywhere else or to use as a fragrance for anywhere else. So it smells good. Wow, this is a great smell. Let me go take it and use it somewhere else. That's not what God intends to happen with his fragrance and his oil. So that's why the people will be cut off, because now they're trying to basically, in essence, take what God has given them and use it for themselves. And this is supposed to be set apart for God. It would not be holy if it was everybody using it. So in order to keep it holy, anybody who did not follow the law had to be removed from the people, cut off from his people, not killed, just exiled. That's rough. But it's easy to not disobey these laws. I mean, just don't make the fragrance that God tells you not to make. Anyone who makes something like its fragrance must be cut off. Don't make the fragrance. So yeah, those are the few things in this chapter: anointing oil, the sacred incense, the bronze basin, the atonement money, and the altar of incense. Let me know what you think about this chapter. Leave a comment down below. You can text me at 662-371-8877. So let me know what you're thinking about this chapter. Let me know what you're saying about this chapter. What do you think about all these different things that God's putting in the temple? How does our church today parallel the temple? Or how does our church look different from the tabernacle that was made in Exodus chapter 30? And yeah, that's all for this episode. Don't forget to share this episode with somebody. Don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, God bless you, and see you on the next one.